Hi there, greetings, greetings. Hope all is well.
Yes, good evening. Just running a little bit
Yeah,
late. Yes, greetings.
greetings, Mitch. Yeah, we've got interesting topic today. A very interesting topic,
Yeah.
which we're going to go through and going to show you in a practical way how you can apply it. So we're just waiting for a few more people to come in the chat, and then we should be good to go.
Yeah, because we're gonna dive deep into today. We're gonna touch some principles and concepts that we use to navigate through this world and this reality here. When we're living a mundane reality and everyday world, from a cycle from just
Mhm.
home to work, we miss a lot of the stuff that happens in between. We'd be at work or standing at a bus stop or amongst our family. And sometimes we miss the ambiency and the energy that takes place and the interchange of energy and all those things. When you start to understand various principles, then you start to see how these things flow together and how you can manipulate them. Most of the time, we're just dealing with manipulation. Manipulate what we can manipulate and just flow with what we can't manipulate. Yeah, we flow with what we cannot manipulate, and then we manipulate what we can manipulate. Yes, so the tinga. All right.
We're going to start off with Sahu, just giving an overview of the historical content of the laws of Tehuti, or what we know as the Hermetic laws. We're going to start off with Sahu giving a brief introduction. Then he's just going to talk about some of the laws, and I'm going to talk about the laws and correspond it to the body and health and our reality. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good one because when you apply the laws in your everyday reality, you will see how these laws are there. They are real. You can't deny them. Those who chooses to acknowledge them are the ones that will, ride with the laws. But those who fail to understand the laws, you know, it becomes, things happen in life and we're not really aware of these things happening, but as we go through the laws, we will see how the laws manifest. And just a quick thing before, so we start, when I was reading about the laws, let's say about 10 years ago or more, I didn't really fully grasp the laws. I understood it in theory, but from an experience point of view, it was only later that I really started understanding the laws, and I could see it everywhere. So a lot of these laws that we're going to go through, they're laws on their own, but they do kind of merge with each other, and we're going to see that. So over to you, Sahu.
Yes, thank you, Christos. And it's true. Them laws, they merge. And because they all ultimately stem from one law, the initial law, and this initial law merges all of them together. And they all like branches on a tree. They all come out from there. So the seven laws of Tehuti, we're going to touch upon and connecting that to the human body. And I went through a similar journey as Christos described there, because I used to always recite them with my children. I used to use my children as an opportunity to memorize them in order and to get descriptions from them, to hear how once they understood what we was talking about, if it was vibration, then for them to look into the world, their experiences, and for them to feed back. And I was really only doing that for me to gather data and information, although it's ultimately extremely beneficial for the child, they're going to learn something which they ultimately, most cases, don't appreciate in the moment. But as time goes on, again, when they get to 16, 17, in that phase, they start to appreciate it a little bit more, especially if you've been starting from that lovely age of 6, 7 years old, talking to them about these laws here. All right, so the laws themselves, these are the laws, the overview, the principle of mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. So we're probably going to spend about 10 minutes on each one of the laws, where we're going to give one of the main phrases used to explain or understand the law, and then a connection to the human body. And this is all connected to this journey of knowing thyself. So as we're entering into it from a modern era, we're going to enter through this gateway. And this gateway, we're looking at it through from this idea of the Kabbalion. So the Kabbalion is something that was put together in 1908. And on the book, when you see it, because it's widely available, go on Amazon, you find it effortlessly. There are other scholars who have created their own versions of it as well. But this is probably the most well known because it's the initial one in this era here. And the three initiates, you would think it's three individuals, and it's quite possible. Initially, I thought they were Masonic people, but also I find said that it's possible it's this gentleman there, William Atkinson, who was born around that time. And there are books that have this quality of language when you read through the Kabbalion. So the Kabbalion itself, though, with these 7 laws that have been mentioned, how it's said in the Kabbalion is that they are phrases and quotes that are passed down from teacher to student, and they were never written. So they were just uttered from mouth to ear. And that was the technique that was utilized. And when something takes place from mouth to ear, it is a journey of experience, of practice, of creating your own book, creating your own knowledge, creating your own way. So once one understands these 7 principles, the first quote, well, the first quote really is this one here. The Kabbalion is known to be the master key to unlock all doors. You unlock all doors through this, and it's a serious thing when I say that, because when you're looking at science, physics, when you're looking at geography, mathematics, when you're looking at mechanics, when you're watching and looking at anything in the world, if you want to understand which is science, how it operates on a deeper level, more fundamental level, so you can know how to manipulate it. Once you understand these 7 points here, these principles, it just unlocks so much. You'll be studying something and you'll see it on a deeper, a more clearer level. And it doesn't matter if you're studying something from biology to English, or if, because it just pops up. And I see it pop up for my daughter, who would be talking to me about her topics in school as she's going for her GCSE exams. And I'll be seeing these principles pop up constantly. And we go on a tangent sometimes and discuss it. But this is coming via way the Kabbalion, via the Hermetica. And the Hermetica is something that is put together by Hermes Trismegistus. And Hermes Trismegistus is like a blend character of Hermes and Tehuti, or Thoth, who they call at that time there. So here, we just got like a little sample of the history going back. So in the blue, we have the Hermetica, which is from that translated into the Kabbalion, I would say. Because within the Hermetica, you have these sayings, but then you also have hundreds. So laws, and you almost come like the 7 really, or the 9, are like just categories to house the other laws within. And it really depends how deep you want to dive into that. That's the Hermetica. But when you go deeper into it, you also find that you have other texts which are also connected. And these other texts, such as the Nag Hammadi Library, which is running simultaneous to the Hermetica. So we're talking the same time period of 0 or 2,000 years ago. But then when you go a little bit further and a little bit more east and a little bit more back into history, then you come and find the Pali Canon, which is related to Buddhism, has the same laws, has the same principles, and this is the one in the book cabinet. So in this, yeah, whole heap of books, whole heap of reading, whole heap of stories, whole heap of ways in which to understand the laws applied. But when you go back further, then you find the such as the pyramid texts. And on the pyramid texts, you find an example like this, which is actually an astronomical glyphs describing the heavens. So when we're having opportunity to understand the heavens and describe it, we can correlate that to something. So you know, say the correlation of things are way back further than the Greek era. And when we go deeper into the character of Tehuti, we come to find that Tehuti is pre-dynastic. So Tehuti is, and if pre-dynasty, some say 6,000, 12,000 BC, is pre-dynasty. So then we're going back 12,000 years, going back further. Now, these things have been observed, just condensed into 7. You know, we good. As time goes on, we start to learn how to let go of things. And after a while, we just condense stuff. But then we realize we have to go back in and expand it again, because sometimes we condense way too much. The 7 itself. So there are some of the names, because even when you go into the Pali Canon, you come to find Tehuti referenced as the elder Buddha, the one said where the knowledge come from. Tehuti is an interesting character because you can be Tehuti manifest because of your desire to create and invent stuff, to manipulate stuff around you, to engineer and create, observe. This is like the Tehuti energy that you can have manifest in you. So I know, say it's like an energy form. So Tehuti, because we're coming from, we have to go deep to go back out again, connected with Ma'at. It's lovely, this. So the 7 principles are still connected with Ma'at. And then Ma'at and Tehuti have a child, Sashet, and she's the goddess scribe. And when you want to go deep, because you know we're talking about yin, entering deep into the knowledge, we just be scratching the surface. But when you want to go deep, in Kemetic mythology, is Sashet, the scribe who whispers in your ear. You go into Southern Asia, and it's a similar story of this. To when you delve into the hidden knowledge, it's a feminine energy that gives you this information here. We're looking at a yin energy. So although we are applying it in a masculine sense or in an active way, the laws, what we download, coming from a different source. So that's just a little breakdown. Can we run through that just to give us understanding where we're coming from? So we're coming from the Kabbalion. Although the Kabbalion make reference to it being from ear to mouth and never written, you come to find it in the Hermetica. Okay. And the Hermetica is still attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, but then you find Hermes Trismegistus is connected to Thoth or Tehuti, because the Greeks shifted that one there from Tehuti. So then we now say the information that was taken from Tehuti was just changed and given the name of Hermes, then Mercury, And this is how it become three times, which is trimegestos, three times incarnated in this text there. All right, so that's enough for the breakdown, a little background on that information. So now we're going to go into the actual concepts. And the first one we're going to do, the principle of mind, and the phrase that encapsulates this here, mind, yeah, is all is mind and everything is mental. All is mind and everything is mental. I want you to just read this one here. Because this is also a part of mentalism. He who grasps the truth of the mental nature of the universe is well advanced on the path of mastery. So as we enter into this realm of mind, all is mind and everything is mental.
Yeah, no, thank you for the introduction. That was good. It's a nice overview concept. It's very important to understand the historical concept, And even here, like on my slide, I've put the laws of Tehuti, but on the first one, it's the law of the seven Hermetic laws. So, different texts, you will see it interchangeable. So it's just recognizing that it's all talking about the same thing. Even when we go beyond the text, but more into the scientific stuff, you will see these laws throughout your science books. You will see these laws throughout your stories, your fables,
Yeah.
but you won't really see them referenced to anything because these are the laws that make up just our reality.
And
And
we're
like
not looking out for it, Christos. We
what,
don't have the term to hang it upon or the concepts that we're attaching it to. We haven't
Mhm.
isolated it and become
No,
aware.
no. And that's why that first law is so important, the law of mind, because it's from that law all the other laws come about,
Yeah.
as we will see. Let me go into the slide. The law of mentalism. So yeah, it does suggest that the universe is mental, creation of the all. So when we're looking at our mind and our reality, everything we see around us is just again a physical manifestation. And a lot of the difference is when you're looking at, for example, nature, you will see that nature is created from the mind of God, whatever you want to call it, the all God, doesn't matter what you call it, but you can see that man didn't create nature. So in our everyday reality, we see that the mind of God is creates nature, has created us, etc. But then when we're looking at the mind of human beings, the question is, can you think of one thing in your house, unless there's trees growing in your house, through the floors of your house, look around your environment, because if I look in my environment in this clinic, everything has been created by the mind of man. So it started somewhere. So looking at the physio bed there, someone created it and someone perceived it first. When I look at the desk, look at the laptop I'm working from, all of these things have been created by man, you know. So it's just like God creates nature, we create the physical environment around us. When we're looking at the body, there's part and part in play. Because when we've got our conscious reality, and then we've got our subconscious reality. Now, with our subconscious reality, when we're looking at the makeup of, let's say, breathing or, our blood circulating, or when we look at the hormones or the electrons that are constantly, sharing electrons through our body, we can see that all of these things are not what we're doing, as it's not created through the mind of man in that sense. But then again, through our mind, where we get nature created by God or through the mind of God, and then we've got the physical manifestations of furniture and stuff like that, the buildings created by the mind of man. When we're looking at our bodies, the conscious element is our creation, and then there's a subconscious element which is not our creation. 100%, there's a lot of things being interwoven, but our consciousness, and this is a relationship where our consciousness and our subconscious, we can manipulate our subconscious mind through our conscious action. And then this is where, we become more than what we just think we are. So when we're looking at the body and our body, we can actually see that even disease is a manifestation of our mind. When we look at conditions, let's say, such as fibromyalgia. Now, I've never met someone with fibromyalgia that hasn't been through a big level of stress or trauma. And again, through that mental manifestation, it actually alters, the body. It changes the body's perception to pain. So this mentalism we can observe within ourselves. So when we look at this slide here, we can see that these different people here have different mentalities. We can see this lady looking at her weight, and as she's looking at her weight, there are things she's going to be doing in order to ensure that she's nice and slim. And that will come from somewhere like her body image of herself. When we see this person eating healthy and cooking healthy, again, they would have a perception of themselves and the image of who they want to be. And this, again, these things are where the consciousness is influencing the subconscious mind and creating a reality where, again, all is mind. When we're looking at this image here of this guy, which a lot of people in Britain do, eating fast food in front of a TV. Now, again, the reality can be, and the mentalism can be affected by the things that we're perceiving through our TV screens, which is making people behave in such ways. Because he would have a very different self-image to her, or these other ladies here, This lady might see herself as, a queen. This lady might be a doctor, or she might see herself in a better image, or she might actually be practicing that role. This lady obviously is seeing enough things for her to make herself, be in the best shape that she can be. But it's not going to be the same in this man's case, sitting in front of the TV eating. And that could be by the upbringing, that could be by so many different factors, childhood trauma, so many things are affecting our mentalism, which is then creating the world around us. Even the words that we're speaking is creating a level of reality. When we wake up in the morning, again, good morning, and what is the word mourning? Mourning is in a state of sadness or mourning a lost one. Where I know in the community, people are more saying grand rising, because they want to feel like the sun, So even the words we use are creating the worlds. And it's just to remember, especially regarding the law of mentalism, that we're perceiving our world through our five senses. And sometimes our mind can be a prison, So many things around us can tell us what we're not, tell us who we're not. The things around us can tell us how to act. The music we listen to can, have an effect on the neuro wiring in our brain, making, especially the young people act a certain way, and sometimes we can get stuck in the mind. Sometimes we can get stuck in our thoughts, our perceptions, But the key is just understanding that, although all is mind, we've got the mind of God, the mind of man. And with the mind of man is always trying to learn and expand and become more godlike, like the mind of God. And it's realizing that within ourselves that we have a limited perception when we're just thinking of ourselves within this five sense reality, this limited reality. And the more we believe in our five senses, the more we believe what we see, every gossip that we hear, if we believe all of these things, this is going to shape the world around us. And even just by aligning ourselves with the mind of God and growing, we can break the chain. So one thing that I do in my life is I never take my mind serious, and I judge where my mind is by my actions. If my actions is eating unhealthy food, then I separate who I really am from what I'm doing in that moment. And I understand, okay, that's the behavior. I'm fulfilling the desires of, man. I want the pleasure, I want the desire. So I can't take myself serious when I'm stuck in these actions. So yeah, the law of mentalism is everything. And as we go through the other laws, we're going to see even how that's part of the law of mentalism.
Yeah.
Right.
So we got an overview of that one there in a few words. What are you saying there now? The this concept of mind.
In a few words, everything is mind. Everything is based on how we perceive the world.
It's almost like a cop out, isn't it, when you say this?
Yeah, it is, but that's the reality.
And then people, when you express something like this, therefore you're responsible for the outcome of things.
Well, yeah, well,
People
that.
tend to take it in a funny way,
Hmm.
but it comes up. The same way you're talking about the illnesses and the ailments and the pain and the things manifest in the body and an accident, tripping over, getting knocked over by something. These near-death experiences, people would assume that it was just some coincidental experience. But no, this is like mind trying to align you back onto your path. It's like we create these situations to learn from. And all these things we go through is manifested through our own mind creating the web around us. So I think we're going to jump in to the next one because
Right.
it almost feels as well mind to a degree, other than I suppose delve into a deeper layer to it. We're going to touch probably at the end of it. That's I think that's nice, good enough. So let's jump into the next one, which is correspondence. And let me just bring up one of these quotes for correspondence. All right. So here, everybody must know this one here. As above, so below. Um, as below, so above. This one here. When we're dealing with correspondence, the lovely thing about this, once you understand the simplicity that we're ultimately making a correspondence or a connection between things, we're looking at how they may not look the same, they may not be the same, may not be the same species. They may be from two different planes of existence. Because when we're going deeper into mind, is when you start talking about planes as well. They may be from different planes of existence, but there's a quality that connects them together. And this is what we're looking at here. So from when mind take place and the possibility of anything is manifest, then from that point is when change starts to take place or things start to manifest and unfold. So now we're looking, how can we connect these things that have unfolded, this geometry, this pattern? Because all we're really doing ultimately on a subconscious level is matching like cogs, the geometry. That's why when we feel when two things connect and align, there's a sense of a nice, good feeling or satisfaction. When you understand something that connects, there's a feeling that comes over us, especially when it's something that we've been really trying to grasp. And that could be like finding out that lavender is good to go to for sleeping at nighttime. Put that underneath your pillow. But then the lavender itself, the element in that connects with something within us, and that element within us resonates with that the lavender, and they both harmonize. And in that case, then there's another law that comes in, which takes the journey to another stage. So just like this image here, we have brain cells within us, the human brain cell. And then when you look at the cosmos and the stars, there are similar patterns that unfold. So then you have the so ultimately we're looking at neurological pathways, electricity, voltage, these lines that move through when we're looking at it on a molecular level. And when we come out of that and we go into a deeper level, or not so much deeper, sorry, into a more general level, it is the stuff that we correlate and connect together. So it's all about correlation.
Yeah, so yeah, lot of correspondence, yeah. Because a lot of the times in reality, like what Suhu was saying, when we're not going to understand everything by going out there and trying to learn everything,
Mm.
but we can learn a lot about the universe through learning about ourselves. And I think they say the two most difficult things in the universe to understand is the universe and the mind of man. And it seems that those who grasp the understanding of themselves are closer to understanding the universe. So we can learn the unknown from what we know. And then when we're looking at this, we can see throughout ancient history where civilizations that we don't give the credit for, like, for example, the Dogon tribe in Africa, where they had the whole of the planetary system kind of mapped out. They could plot the Sirius constellation, Orion's belt, and all of that. And, there was not a lot of evidence of these big technology that we have now, like, telescopes which are just ginormous. We can't see that evidence. And then we wonder, how did they know so much? Or when you see certain places like where brain surgery was happening in Africa, and this is documented, you can see on YouTube and you can see the proof of the year that it was done, way before a lot of the advancements took place. And this again was through oral tradition. So to understand anything, even when we're looking at the creations out there, like the camera, it's more modeling of the eye, etc. When we're looking at like the way the speakers work and the ear and stuff like that, we can see how things are corresponding to the technology. And just so there is the understanding of man is to understand God a little bit better. But then we've got the correspondence between even man and this AI technology that's out there. So, also, what is also important is, life lessons will always teach us correspondence, experience. So whose example about the lavender, there was someone at some particular point of time or a group of people or different people at different time frame who were just tapped into themselves where they could look at a lavender plant and see that it will correspond to helping them relax. When we're looking at other things like the correspondence of the myofascial sling, which, this is a physical thing. You can go in any dissection room or peel a human being. I wouldn't advise doing that. But you will see these myofascial slings. This is like the superior back sling. And this corresponds directly to the acupuncture points, in Chinese acupuncture. And you can see that for example, as a therapist, if I'm treating an area hands-on and I'm releasing all this area here or releasing here, you will get the correspondence and the further release down the chain, just like you would if you use acupuncture needles. Now, by treating the myofascial sling, you can affect the meridians, but also by treating the meridians, you get the same correspondence on the myofascial slings. Another example is the way the atoms go around the nucleus, just the same way that the planets go around the sun. But interesting fact is, this model, there's other concepts and there's other models which is showing that actually, let's just say this is not what it appears to be. And let's just say things are acting a little bit different. Let's just picture this moving whilst the planets are going around, but not moving in a straight line, maybe in a spiraling kind of motion. Again, we can see where theories have updated itself and we see models which are actually corresponding. That whole rotation and that whole movement of electrons and the whole movement of systems around each other in a very spiraling way. So they say, as above, so below, as within, so without. So by understanding, even like when we're looking at the meridians of the body, or we're looking at the meridians of the earth, or we're looking at the chakras of the planet, and then we're looking at the chakras of the body, again, we can see a correspondence. Okay, so here's where it gets a little bit interesting. This correspondence we can even see in the movies. Now, this is Alien from Predator. I haven't watched, I'm not the biggest fan of this, so excuse me if I tell the story a little bit wrong, but from what I understand, when we're looking at any alien invasion film, we're talking about the alien coming down to Earth, attacking the host planet, killing all the human beings, taking over the planet. That's the alien's job. But isn't that the same thing that the parasite is doing? Now, I've had malaria, and I know that's what the parasites were doing to me. Because as that mosquito bite me and injected all them parasites, my body was being taken over by these parasites from the malaria. And I could feel the takeover because of, experiencing delirium, where it was just random stuff. And I was totally not in control of what I was seeing in my mind. It was just random images of everything. It was just a crazy experience. But the more I was experiencing that, because with malaria, you go through periods of where you're feeling good, you're fine. And then all of a sudden, you just, something's happening. You start feeling very unwell. And what's happening there is where the parasites are resting, they're feeding off your glucose in the liver. And then they come out and then they start destroying the blood cells and start, taking over. But it's the same thing that's happening. So when we're watching an alien video or a survival of man because alien invasion, we've really got to look at ourselves and see that actually it's talking about the relationship.
Hello? They can't cope with normal nuances that children can cope with in the school.
Okay, don't know what happened there, but that's all right.
Or doesn't like going to school at all. You may find that your child has difficulty in speaking or
so that's fine. So yeah, it's basically the same story that's playing out. Alien invasion is really what the parasites are doing to us. But interesting, and I might be the first person to make the connection. So again, I don't know the full in and out of the film, so apologies if I get it wrong. But this is Predator here. And as far as I remember, Predator is killing the aliens. And again, correspondence, isn't that the same thing that the Rastaman is doing to the parasites? Yeah, so as above, so below, we can see it in so many forms, whether it's through the movies they put out, through our health. And another interesting story, because even the dreams will tell you what's going on, and I know that just through various experiences. So there was a time where I was having, feeling very congested, feeling definitely like awful, feverish, and everything was very blocked. And then I had a dream, and I felt a pressure point right at the back of the kind of around the back of the neck area. And because I'm very sensitive to a lot of things, so I can make the connections quite easily. But so I remembered the point. So I looked at my acupuncture chart. And as I was looking at that acupuncture chart, I could see that the relief I got was an area called bladder 20. Yeah. And so, okay, I don't usually needle that part of the body because a lot of the times I'm needling the extremities, like the legs, the back, the glutes, or whatever. But not so much in that bladder 20 part. So I done a little bit of research, and as I researched, I could see that actually that bladder 20 was corresponding to a part that was dealing with fever. And I think if I remember correctly, it was referring to something like wind in, not wind, passing wind, but kind of like the wind element, and kind of like the something about wind being trapped in that region, and that wind being kind of corresponding to pathogens and stuff like that. But it was when I felt that pressure point in that area, and it dissipated. And then actually I felt significantly better after that. And the reason what made me look at the chart is actually thinking, why did I feel better? So sometimes we're feeling discomfort in our body. Sometimes we might get knee pain or back pain, and it's corresponding to something. Sometimes the back pain can correspond to an emotion. Sometimes the knee pain can correspond to just lack of support in your life. So correspondence is so multi-directional. And it's again across all planes.
So vibration. So after going through correspondence, we appreciate that there's a connection between all things. And this connection is internal and external. We see the thing outside of us, and it happens within. We create things from within and we manifest them out. We see stuff in the stars and we see them in the waters. The two waters, the celestial waters and the waters of earth. So now as we jump into vibration, you start to appreciate between these correspondence and these things connecting, because we've been talking on the growth on the bigger level, but these things correspondence also happen on a energetic, on a smaller level. So when we're looking at vibration, we're looking at it through all its various stages. The quote that encapsulates this one here: nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. These early ones are effortless to remember them. Nothing rests. So when it comes to vibration, we just take that simply and say when we look at something solid, we know on a molecular level, there is movement and there's vibration. When we look at something which is in a greater state of vibration, something that we can actually feel and resonate, then we know that then we know that we can add in an additional law to it afterwards. But once things start to vibrate, that's like one constant. But once you start to add in the rate and the change of the vibration, then we go into a different quality. So now we're just now matching vibration. And we can connect this to, for example, emotions and feeling. Somebody's vibrating on a certain frequency, and then you want to just resonate with them. But maybe you don't want to, because you enter into a space and people are upset or they're vexed or there's been an argument. You enter into the room, you was good, and all of a sudden your vibration has shifted. The vibration we're talking about is the way in which the waves, the brain waves are oscillating. This directly can affect every cell in the body. So the cells in the body are vibrating also, and their vibration can decrease. This is when illness starts to come. And when our vibration heightens up, or it goes to between a certain range, then everything feels like it's flowing again. So to master the key of vibration is to master is to have the ability to master our emotions, our feelings, and it's also in these other laws as well, this particular quality, but also on a physical level, the ability to manipulate time and space, whether we're talking about on a metaphysical level now, let's say levitation, or the concept of phasing through walls, or the idea of clairvoyance or telepathy, mind-to-mind communication. These enter into the realm of vibration, because you're ultimately, vibration is a frequency, because it can be translated this way, and that frequency that they're vibrating to is what you're in tuning into. So the law of vibration, once you appreciate that everything is in constant motion, in gnosis, this is one of the questions answered in the Apocrypha of John, where it talks of, how do I know? When John asks the question, no, it's not the one Apocrypha of John. It's the one where John goes off to the mountain and he holds a meditation. It come like the story of divine Polyandries, which is one of the first stories in the Hermetica, this divine Polyandry. But the same with this, I go into this vibration, this concept here, is all about resonating at the correct frequency and connecting with your environment around you on a fundamental level. Vibration, everything in constant flow, constant movement. That's how you know that you're living. That's what the text says.
Yeah, yeah.
You know you live because you move, you come and you go. If it wasn't for vibration, nothing could exist.
Yeah, so yeah, no, that very, very true. Everything has to move, and even the thing that we think is still moving. Like think of a car, and as a car's moving, you see the rims move. But then if it's picking up pace, you see it moving a little bit quicker. But sometimes things are vibrating at such a rate that it appears that it's always still. And as human beings, there's so much things happening, and we're forever vibrating at a rate that it appears that everything's still. But if anything's still, it's kind of like it's basically dead. But even the dead is still, there's still an element of vibration, because everything that we leave behind in our bodies is still going to be absorbed, and there's still going to be a whole process.
It's true, because when you said that, it reminded me of when I was younger, that an elder did tell me that everything's moving, everything's vibrating. He never said it like this to me, but he was talking about the sink water, describing how the water goes down the sink in a certain direction.
Mhm.
Saying, he's asking me, how is this? I'm like primary school age. And he was describing to me that ultimately the earth is moving so quick. It's like the first time I hear this concept, it's moving so quick, it appears still. I'm like, yeah, the earth it just looks so still out there. As I'm looking into the world right now, it just looks so still. Concept is, and some of these ones here, it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
Yeah, because you kind of have to think, unthink, unlearn, and then relearn.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes the spin isn't the spin how we think.
Yeah.
Sometimes the spin is how we describe the solid, and how the solid is still moving. It's not so much always just on a physical level seeing something move 100 miles per hour. It's not always this natural thing we're seeing. Sometimes we're actually seeing something move so slow but inside of it, it's vibrating at a rapid rate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, if we had to see all the high frequency vibration that's going on in our body, if our eyes just saw all the waves, then there'd probably be a lot of madness that we would be
Oh
seeing.
gosh, yeah.
And that's probably why our body or our eye spectrum is only limited to such a small bandwidth.
Hmm.
Um,
And
but
yeah,
and yeah, when you're looking at everything, so again, manifestation of mind, matter, energy, spirit is again just a matter of vibration. And even what Sahu was saying about, have I got it in the slide? Let's go to this body. So he was talking about, emotions are at a higher vibration. And what we can see, we've got different types of our body. And I think like the first three or four is like what would be considered to be the lower self. And then the upper ones are what is considered to be our higher self. When we're looking at the higher and lower self kind of, thing that we throw out there when we go are talking to our higher self, or, we're in our lower nature, this is, you the truest sense of actually what it is. And we can see that, our bodies are vibrating at such a slow rate that everything becomes dense, everything becomes palpable. But again, this is where it goes back to the law of mentalism, where all is mind. Because again, it's our mind that's picking up these perceptions. Because then the reality is showing that atoms and everything is so far apart that, are we really touching what we think we're touching? Or are we touching waves or form of waves that is just being perceived and picked up as from the brain as something solid? Or is this the reason why, some people can do almost near the impossible because they've got an understanding of this concept, and because they don't take their mind so serious that they're able to do things that are miraculous, because when we're looking at, again, at reality, just a side note, we can see that what we see in the book, a dog, the word dog is different from what a dog is in reality. And we're so into this spell of this English language where our reality is so constructed by this limitation of this English language, where people who speak other languages, or people who's talking more original languages, have a different concept of reality. And through their reality, their behavior towards each other is totally different. But not digressing too much. So yeah, so looking at this slide here, we can see that all the organs are vibrating again at a certain frequency. So, when we're looking at frequency, for those who was on the sound talk last time, we was talking about, the waves, the scalar waves, the sound waves, the particles, and we could see that frequency is basically, everything, the movement of things. And we can see that at a lower frequency, we can see, the pancreas, the liver, the heart. But as we go to a higher frequency, we can see the brain is vibrating at a little bit of a higher frequency. When we're looking at, let's say, if the difference between, when particles speed up. Okay, no, let me give another concept actually. It might be easier to think of this concept. Let's look at sound, yeah, because we're talking about frequency. We got frequency so low that we can't pick it up with the ear. Then we got that frequency within our reality, the thing that we can hear. So my voice you can hear, it's, you would say it's real based on your perception of reality. I'm here, I'm speaking, it's real. But if I was a dolphin and I'm making a sound that you can't hear, you would say then it's not real, because the dolphins are communicating happily with each other, and we're here and we can't hear the dolphins. So to us, it's like the tree that falls in the woods. Is it real? Did it happen? Where yes, it did. Yes, the dolphins are communicating, and yes, we can't hear that. So just the same way where we have these other bodies where, okay, just because we can't measure it, just because we can't feel it in that sense of the five senses, we deny these other bodies, whereas actually, well, some people are a little bit more aware of the etheric body because they would say that's your life force, that's the chi. And we know that through experience, if we really pay attention, whatever you want to call it, you can call it any name, that body is real. There's just no doubt about it. For those of you that got life and soul in you through your music that you're playing, it's another part of the body, our spirit, the life force. We generate, we gather with good music, with a good time, with good people, vibing off good people. We can feel it as part of our reality. Then we've got the emotional body. Now we know that's real because, again, as we're going more outwards, we understand that these are vibrating at a faster rate, you know. And so we got the emotional body. You don't have to, you can go into a room where someone's argued and you can hear, or not necessarily hear if you weren't there, but 5 minutes after, you could feel the emotions attached to that space. You can feel a dark cloud with people without even speaking to them. Or sometimes people you avoid because you don't want to be in their presence because you can feel something not right. So everything's vibrating, everything's moving. And the more we're vibrating, or the higher up we go, the more things are vibrating. So just what Carver Carbonate always says, he basically says, which I'm not doing justice to his name, but one of the things I like of his saying is that science, or sorry, spirituality is unseen science, and those who are adept to understand and graduate in that field are the ones that really understand that concept and see it part of their reality. A lot of the time when I'm doing treatment, and I could do, I could see, it's very interesting when I see, especially the PhD, um, prof- people with PhDs or doctors or other healthcare professionals that think they know, especially the ones that think they know everything. And I could tell them, and I can simplify the body in such a simple way that actually now they can't see that concept, or because it's not part of their reality. And before the treatment, they don't understand the concept that I'm trying to grasp because they just don't understand it. But through experience and the treatments that I do and how they feel after the treatments, then they can understand what's going on. I've seen other people who's come and I can pick up that there's something not quite right with them. And not quite right in the sense of there's something wrong with them, but that they're experiencing a level of grief or they're experiencing a certain level of something, again, by the manifestations. Um, other day I had one who was having trouble sleeping at a particular time. When I looked at the chart for where the difficulty of sleeping, even just looking at the Chinese chart, I could see that it was affecting a particular organ. Now, that organ, again, this is where the law of correspondence is coming now, where that organ that organ is again tied to an emotion. Now, that emotion that they was experienced, I was able to tell by basically just having a feeling that, okay, there's something going on, but then corresponding their sleeping pattern to the organ and that organ corresponding to the emotion as to why they were waking up at that time. And I was able to identify that they was going through a huge level of grief. And when you're open with your clients or your patients or whatever, or whoever you're dealing with out there, and you're open to a level of where they're able to actually, talk to you properly and you're able to share with them as well, he confirmed everything to be true. So that's just an example of the law of vibration. Again, law of vibration. Have you ever had certain dreams that are feel more real than reality? You know?
Mm.
I had some dreams, boy.
All the time. But now I look
Yeah.
at that, yeah, a bit differently though.
Hmm.
That vibration, that stuff, and I definitely connect correspondence strongly with dreams and vibration.
Hmm.
And then I have to do some reverse science with that one there, with the correspondence. I have to look at it because it's the mind and things are not apparent, things are not direct. A lot of the time when you're trying to understand your subconscious mind, it's like a glyph, it's like a message, it's a person representing the energy, but not the person. Oh, did I explain it clearly there? Then? In a dream, you have let's say a friend who you like, but then in that dream they're doing something that you thought was wrong. They make
Hmm.
you have a different perception of that person in real life because you think that that situation might happen or they done that. It's a feeling, but
Yeah.
then ultimately, depending upon the time, depending upon the time, let's say generally the morning, this manifests that it's really your brain trying to explain something to you. So then that person represents a quality, an energy. So if you see that person as bright, optimistic, sad, joyful, lonely, whatever that person, the main quality of that person is the energy the brain's trying to convey. Because it's not writing the word down on your brain. It's not going
Hmm.
to say, yeah, in English. It's just going to it has to give a symbol. And a
Yeah.
person or a place or a building is the symbol.
Hmm.
So then we may interpret now, we know that person, we know their character. Then we're looking at the event. And the event
Hmm.
sometimes can be directly the event, or it can be a reverse event. And
Yeah. Yeah.
my experience is depend upon the time you're
Hmm.
experiencing this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that makes perfect sense. And again, it shows how correspondence is kind of going across the planes of vibration.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's why it's the second law of appreciation.
Hmm.
Yeah, vibration. So I think we've appreciated to master the law of vibration is to ultimately to master one's moods, one's emotion, and one's feeling. If one can truly get a grasp of vibration, one will never feel sad. One will always be in, we don't want to be in a state of bliss or happiness all the time, but we can manipulate it how we desire because we know how to shift the field of vibration around us as we
Yeah.
enter into the higher states of consciousness.
Yeah. And I mean, this is just an example. This can represent so many different laws, but in regards to vibration, homeostasis is when everything's balanced. But at the same time of things being balanced, these atoms are still moving. It still has a vibration. So this is just what that's showing. Yeah, off to the next one now.
All right, so let me just let's go straight into this law. All right, so we've touched the law of vibration. So let us move into the next rhythm, because everything moves and everything's vibrating. But then when it comes to the rate and the movement of vibration, then it's a different thing that we have to acknowledge. So we know now we're adding another law in. And this one's a little bit longer, so we're going to slow this one down, but we're going to say it quick first. So the law of rhythm in the Kabbalion states, everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. It's a beautiful thing. When you are aware of this is the flow of life, the ebb and flow, the highs and the lows, the good and the bad days. We live life going through a lot of turmoil, a lot of stress. In this world here, pressure applied, whether it be physically or mentally, is generally considered stress. So we can say we encounter a lot of stress. So when we experience a positive outcome or a good situation or flow or nice moment in our life, ultimately it's the outcome of going through all the stress. So the good phase that we go through isn't repaid, yeah, with a bad phase, even though it feels like we go flow into bad and good. And this is the law of rhythm as well that needs to be appreciated with this flow of rhythm. The compensation that takes place, the compensation of doing a action or a deed, which again comes into a law later on, but the flow of doing this. We get into patterns. And then all of a sudden, something happened that happened weird. And then, because really, we never control the rhythm properly. We just be abusing it, just doing it constantly. Everything has a pattern, everything has a flow, a harmonic resonance to it. Once you engage in the harmonic resonance of an activity, thing that you do, whether you be studying, reading, or a sport, then the kickback or the inactivity phase, or the part that comes and, let's say, nips you in the butt, or the part that comes back and makes you having to slow down, yeah, that rhythm, it changes once you understand the law. You're able to interrupt and maintain the flow, what we call in Tai Chi, Wu Wei. So Wu Wei, flow state, which science is really going into. So everything flows. So we're trying to enter that state. Once we're in a flow state, then the rhythm is nice within us and the vibration is kind of settled. As we go forward into the worlds and as we go in, everything has its tides, just like water. The waters that are within us, our blood flow, lymphatic flow. And generally, I describe in the physical form, liquid light. When I'm in Tai Chi describing the energetic system, generally I don't really call it energy just like this. I give the energy a bit more density. So then it's like liquid light, it's energetic flow. And it has its rhythm to it. And we're trying to, just like with the cerebral spinal fluid, it has its own rhythm. And doing certain practices helps to stabilize and harmonize that rhythm. That rhythm is the central rhythm that harmonizes the other water systems in the body from the center out. Everything rise and fall. The pendulum swings. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. Nothing, I know we talk of the physical form here, but nothing escapes this law of rhythm. Everything from the smallest atom to the star, to the largest thing that we know. Everything has a season. Everything has a time. I remember, as soon as I remember this, that statement there, that brings me back to Ecclesiastics. I think it's the second one, where it talks of a similar thing. There's a time for everything. But this time for everything is rhythm. And this rhythm has to balance itself out. This is why I make reference to the initial part, that we must not get confused to think that the compensation of balance takes place because we have a good experience. And because it was going so well, everything's so nice that it has to go bad. That's not the compensational swing. Everything going good is the compensation from everything that you already experienced, which is the journey. And once you appreciate this, then it kind of like shifts a little bit. Because remember, it's every day, from moment to moment, we are experiencing some form of pressure and stress. That's why it's key to find internal peace and relaxation. From physiology, we will describe a single pressure on the body as stress. When I first found that definition, I thought, wow, that's that the body has calculated even just a touch. You touch somebody's shoulder gently. So these rhythms that we experience, these emotional flows that we go through, once we understand how things compensate in this flow, then we know how to manipulate the flow. All right, so let us expand.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because it really is about it's an interesting concept because again we do believe that the pendulum has to be dramatic,
Yeah.
you know, that's ingrained with us, but the pendulum should be so subtle. I mean, homeostasis of the body is
Mm.
so subtle that I mean, gosh, if you move
The
even a little bit that way, you're dead.
whole
If you
system is falling apart. It's true. It's a fine line. It's the middle path, isn't it? And it stays to the middle path.
can only pendulum flight,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, it is
But
interesting.
however, there is a pendulum swing.
There is, yeah.
How
Yeah,
that's the point.
yeah,
As subtle as it is, there is still a little minute movement.
yeah. Because everything moves, everything vibrates.
That's right.
And all the laws are intertwined with each other. Let me share. So yeah, hopefully your pendulum shouldn't be sounding like this one or be too big. um, but yeah, rhythm is everything, it's everywhere. The breathing, how we controlling our breathing, how are we breathing? Is the breathing up and down, shallow, like you're having an asthma attack, you know? Is it out of sync? Is it like the waves? Um, really good book out there. I forgot the name. I mentioned it last time. It's something about the breath. And the author was describing is that really controlling the breathing, even as uncomfortable as it feels, is something that needs to be done, you know, in terms of to build up one's lung capacity and stuff like that. And when we're looking at rhythm, we see it almost in everything. When we're looking at nature, you know, we will see it as the seasons, the changing seasons, and depending on where you are, you will see that every location has a different rhythm conducive to where it is, you know. They say when we're having good summers that we're going to get the harsh winters to follow, you know. Sometimes they say when we're having the milder summers, might get the milder winters, you know. But nature has already designed itself in a way and balanced itself in a way where it's going to follow its rhythm, you know. And when we're observing nature and when we're observing our rhythm, we will see that a lot of the time when we're getting sick and unwell is when, again, we're overdoing things, when we're doing too much, when we're not obeying other laws like the law of sleep rest. You know, we're playing too hard, we're working too hard. Well, not playing too hard, but definitely working too hard, you know. And a lot of us do this because of, you know, economic situations or, you know, some of us, we love what we do and we forget about other things, you know. But again, it's important to know that the body has its rhythm, and by going against the rhythm, it can lead to a lot of problems. Um, Again, you know, we might experience happiness, sadness, or we might experience good health or poor health. We might not necessarily get such extremes because, you know, people who are always keeping themselves in, you know, that healthy side of the spectrum will be even good health or might just get a little bit of a runny nose, you know, and that runny nose might just literally be the body's way of getting rid of a pathogen. There might be absolutely nothing wrong with them, but they might just get a runny nose because the body's expelling whatever it needs to expel, you know. So it doesn't have to be extreme, but even something as simple as that is, again, the body following a rhythm. We might go through periods where we put on more weight. Let's say it's winter time, you know, we might put on more weight in the winter, especially back in the days. That might have been necessary back in the days where people probably had to cultivate their food and stuff like that. Or when we're looking at a polar bear, it will put on a lot of weight in the winter, you know. Even when you're looking at people that train, some people purposefully try and put on a lot of weight and bulk up in the wintertime, athletes, and then do the shredding in the summertime, you know. Again, rhythm, once a man, twice a child, you know, as the saying goes, old and young. So we can see the principle of rhythm is almost everywhere for us to see. And I suppose it's just about obeying the law of rhythm and just understanding, you know, when we understand that actually we was young and now it's our time to get old, we don't have to fight it. When we understand that actually we're unwell and we will get better, you know, it doesn't have to bring us anxiety, you know, because even anxiety can shift the rhythm of a person, you know, or put a person in a whole different rhythm which is not conducive to their health, you know. So yeah, rhythm is it's an interesting one.
So thank you, Christos, on that breakdown there of rhythm, the ebb and flow of life, the flow. Now we understand the flow. We have to take a little deeper look into this flow thing here, this rhythm. And when we're looking at rhythm now, that's where we can jump into polarity. So the phrase, again, a heavy one, just like the one previous. I'm going to read through that first. So polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths, and all paradoxes may be reconciled. So this is the main, and remember, when you're reading through the Kabbalion and you go through, let's say, the section of polarity, there are many other quotes. But this one here, just like the ones I've chosen, I feel gives the best overview to understand it. So with polarity, everything is dual. So we have, I mean, there's two sides to the situation here. It's always two sides. We come from the oneness of source into what we call yin yang, or into duality, or into cause and effect, or into change. Or we enter into a state where there's this polarity of existence. Two things. And most mythology talk about stuff manifesting from the one into the two. Generally from the two to the three or to the four, depending what mythology and what culture. And everything, therefore, has a pole of axis that it orientates itself around. I mean, the center. So if it has a polarity, it has a neutral point, a balancing point, depending what we're looking to achieve. And opposites, everything has its pair of opposites. And the opposite one is interesting because not always opposite is the way you think opposite is. Like fire and water, hot and cold. These are opposite in nature. They are on the same spectrum. Sorry, they're opposite in nature. They're hot and cold, but they're along this this spectrum. So at what point does hot become cold and cold become hot? That's a weird one to determine. And the same way within the body, we have this polarity, this opposites, where when we experience cold, because in past, ailments were considered in two ways. Now we've got symptoms that go, we've got hundreds, thousands. I mean, I've got a book there that shows a little book, but it's thick with all these different ailments. In the old world, things were looked at very simply. We have the orifices, the holes in the body. Then you also have the concept of hot and cold. You also have the law of similarity that was manipulated and used a lot. But this hot and cold concept was, there's only two types of illness. It's either it's an illness that is creating cold in the body, or it's an illness that's creating heat in the body. Remedy simple. If the thing's creating heat in the body, then you require cold. And if the thing is creating cold in the body, then you require heat. And it's not just inflammation or a knock or a bruise on the arm where you see direct swelling and you know you have to apply cold to it. The concept is also internal to the organ. And we sometimes look at this from an alkaline to an acid state. Acid is still hot, things still heated. We want to make it more neutral, which ultimately is cooling it down. We're applying the same concept of polarity from the old world, but now we just call it pH scale and we just look at it from a total different way. But that is very simple to acknowledge that truly, ultimately, there's two types here. I know there are thousands of names and there's thousands of symptoms and they all derive from two things. It's those who know, when we start to appreciate it, we know how to now manipulate. So we have so as opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree, as we just described there. So all truths are but half truths, which is an interesting one when it comes to paradoxes, and all things can be resolved. It takes it out of the concept of just a physical form. It goes deeper into things that we experience in the world. Love and hate, courage and fear. These qualities here are opposite in nature. So they operate within the same concept of polarity. So we have a little bit of fear in us. The idea is now is to cultivate the quality of courage inside of us. We feel grief. This is the law of polarity we're manipulating now. We feel grief. Now we want to apply the quality of bliss, tranquility, serenity. Yeah, we want to find this or practice that quality if we're experiencing grief, feeling ungrounded. Then ultimately, you want to do stuff that ground us, settle us, bring us back to our center. When it comes to these paradoxes in reality, where in most cases, when it comes to polarity, there are something that just don't make no sense. We have a question or a quandary or something we're trying to understand. How can we connect these things together, utilizing this concept of correspondence? But once we understand polarity, all them issues in correspondence that don't make no sense, somehow we're able to manipulate and make it a bit clearer through understanding the subtle degrees of shifts and understanding things on their most fundamental level, and then applying that fundamentalness to all things. This is why this become the master key. So one can resolve the half-truths. Ultimately, the half-truth is only one side of the story. Then when you hear the other side of the story, then you got a complete story. And that is how the story or the paradox is generally resolved, from understanding the both sides of the situation and going forward. This is polarity. So we're going to explain that now a bit deeper into the body.
Yeah, I think I was so much gung-ho for polarity because, oh gosh, I mean, it's something I'm having to explain to people all the time, all the time.
You see? That means I'm going to have to put the brakes on you in a minute.
Yeah, yeah, possibly. Again, yeah. Opposites, just they're on just different spectrums. So, okay, let me go into the meat so I can really hone into what I want to talk about. But that saying, all truths are half truths. Doctor says you're never gonna walk again. I mean, how many times have we heard that story? You know, it's that one thing that can vex a patient, it's that saying, especially the ones that, they don't want any self-limiting belief. There's some people that will gladly accept that, but there's some people, their spirit, they would just never accept that. And that doesn't matter what the scenario is, they just have a strong belief that they will walk and, again, all truths are hard truths because I've heard people where the doctor said they would never be able to walk again. And then I've seen them walk. I've seen people in my experience who, when I first met them, and this is not just my treatment. I'm talking about these are neurological patients, and this is a team of us working on them, in a setting specialized dealing with these scenarios where, I've had the lady couldn't talk, couldn't move, couldn't walk, because of something pressing on a nerve in her brain. And then again, over time, yes, science can explain why she did achieve her ability to walk again and her ability to function and her ability to progress to a state where she, was moved into a more of a supported living situation rather than a full nursing care with physios, etc., consultants. So when I see these experiences, and I've seen them from time to time, you know, you do see that actually there's more that we do not know. And on the spectrum of polarity, it's about where is someone, and a lot of the time we might not even know. Again, polarity, from good posture to bad posture. Again, the reality of that is no, a lot of the time, most people are not there. But at the same time, most people are not here either. Most people are somewhere in the middle between the points. When we're looking at tissues and injuries, we can see healthy tissue. And on the polarity, we can see tissues that are inflamed. And then we can see another polarity where, on the same spectrum where they overheal themselves. And a lot of the time through therapy, we're trying to get it back into a little bit of this stage so it can heal a little bit better. So even through this, polarity can even take a little bit of a different direction. Again, the natural process of degeneration, after the age of about 30 or definitely 40, no one's 100% there, most of us anyway, nor is everyone here. And let's say we look at the age of from between 40 and let's say 90, we will see that everyone's somewhere between these polarities, you know. And a lot of the times people would say, people want a diagnosis, they with it's always good to have a diagnosis or working diagnosis. You can put a person's mind into the problem of, what the condition is. But again, the diagnosis in itself might not even be the reality because you can get someone with sciatica and then you can get someone who's edging towards sciatica. But, at what point does sciatica become sciatica? Okay, they say sciatica becomes sciatica when the nerves are starting to become irritated. But then there's an irritation of the nerve, which might be so mild and might be so intermittent. And then you can get an irritation of the nerve, which is permanent, But is it only when it's full-blown sciatica do you treat it, or do you treat it further along the polarity more to normal health? And this is where prevention can be so important. So when clients of mine do get a diagnosis or do ask for a diagnosis, I have to give them the whole spectrum. And even if they're not in the condition yet, even if they're in the precursors to the condition, it's very important that they understand exactly where they are. Because by them, it's understanding where they are and understanding the whole polarity, then they're more than likely to do something about it. And they're more likely to help themselves, And again, when they correspond it, use the law of correspondence, so you can see that, the same thing that's happening to this muscle nerve down here can correspond in a similar way to another tissue elsewhere in the body. So by understanding one problem of the body and going through a journey of healing a problem, you can prevent other things from manifesting, But that's in the sense of injury, and that might be in the sense of physiotherapy, which I'm showing you here. But then there's other polarities. So this is interesting. Is it Jerry Tennant? I think it's Jerry Tennant. He's a either eye doctor or something like that. And he wrote a very good book, Healing Your Voltage. And again, on the polarity here, you can see that you got the voltage, and voltage again is to do with electrons. And again, when you're looking at the law of correspondence, you can correspond that to this model here, which is again the pH, which is again talking about electrons, but through pH, which is potential hydrogen. Hydrogen has one electron, and that's why they say potential hydrogen pH rather than potential gold, because you basically hydrogen and every other element seems to be a multiplication of hydrogen. Yeah, so that's why they use pH, because it's the first element, basically. So we can see that the more alkaline something is, again, is the higher the voltage. But then when we're looking at health, and again, we can see the pH, and this is where we're going, again, cross-checking with the law of rhythm, and that pendulum swing, because we can see that pendulum is still quite small, because when we're looking at the pH here, that's a 3. If the body was in that state, we can see that cancer occurs at, plus 6.48. And then, as good health. Am I saying it right? Yes, I am saying it right. Yes. So that's plus 30. So that number is very small, but it's plus 30, where electrons have a negative charge. So the more electrons is we correspond to the more alkaline a cell is. The more alkaline a cell is, we can see is where we get a higher voltage. And we can see even in children that children, their cells are at a higher voltage, because they've got more voltage to grow, more voltage to heal, etc. And we can see gains with polarity on the law of polarity on the other scale. We can see disease manifesting, but the law of rhythm is keeping things still within a tight spot, even though in that small range you can get cancer, and in that small range we can have the cells healing each other. So that's just the understanding of how everything is interplaying all the laws. And when you understand that, you can manipulate that reality. So there was another slide actually, but that one's going into the law of vibration. But I'm not gonna. I can go off on one, so I'm gonna keep it there for now.
Yeah. So we appreciate the pendulum swing of the polarity, and it's not just magnetism that we operate. So we look outside of ourselves and we appreciate magnetism or polarity on that level as well. But the true we're looking the master key to manipulate reality. This is the main way in which we utilize this concept here. As we swiftly move through from polarity into the next law, cause and effect, causation. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. So causation, something that we experience on a day-to-day. The thing that we do and the outcomes of them. The most important thing to appreciate in this topic, this principle of causation, is that cause and effect isn't just a one-time outcome scenario situation. It's a series of events. A series of events. So at any one of those points along that journey, there could have been something implemented, something tweeted or shifted, which would cause an alternative outcome. But when you go back to mind, And we're going to go into mind again in a second. But as we have this idea that we self-manifest our reality on a subconscious level. That as a result, those things that we experience, the causes and the effects, these cause effects are life lessons, experiences, so we can develop ourselves further. And this always operates within principles of the universe. So to the principles and the laws that we have just mentioned, it will take place, these cause and effect, as well as gender and mental gender. So chance, sometimes we experience in this reality, we say, it just happened by chance. Like, wow. We come out of this concept here and we enter into synchronization, when we start to understand reality, that there are no chances out here. Nothing not really taking place just because it's just happening for the sake of happening. Everything happened because of an event that took place prior to that moment there. And that is synchronicity, because everything's flowing and we are either trying to flow with it or we're trying to manipulate it. If we understand the cause, which causes the effect, then we can manipulate. And once we understand the law that is taking place within, cause and effect, we feel upset because somebody just made us this way, our vibration has changed, so we change our vibration to a state that is more uplifted. We decide to go for a walk out there, go for a walk, or take a deep breath in, and then we change ourselves again. And this is truly, we practice this stuff here. That's just in our mental, emotional state. Important to appreciate that all this happened due to sequences of events taking place, whatever you're experiencing in the moment, in this moment. I got a pain in my side, my shoulder's hurting me. Your shoulder's not hurting you just because you just lifted and carried a bag for a couple of moments. It's because you've been carrying them bag in the same hand, same position, maybe for months. It's that sequence of events that we're missing out. And we just observed the last moment, as I like to say, during treatment, the straw that broke the camel's back. In that one incident, the back pull, the shoulder give way, the leg give way. That one instant there. So, and that's synchronicity. You know what I'm saying? That's synchronicity. There are many planes of causation as we went through correspondence, appreciating the different planes of reality, which are perceived through mind. But nothing escapes this law, though. Cause and effect. Whatever stage of reality, whatever plane of existence, and in Hermetica, there are like 7 planes and they've got subplanes talking about the animal world, plant world. These are all different planes. And them plane there is where these things are taking place within, these different laws. So nothing escapes it, whatever realm that you live within. So if you understand that and you see an outcome, you can denote where it's coming from through investigation. That's correspondence, the frequency of the event. And the outcome, how it affects you, which is ultimately vibration. Causation is a thing that affects us every single day. But once you understand the law of cause and effect, we end up being in the right place at the right time, experiencing the situation that we're meant to. So let's just explore this again from a physical point of view. As we understand now, just a little bit of causation and the law. Appreciating as a sequence of events that take place that allow us to experience the outcome. And it's not the outcome which is the problem, it's the journey.
Yeah, no, thank you for the explanation, Sahu. Yeah, so yeah, cause and effect, like Sahu was saying. Yeah. And we see it a lot of times. And so you should probably seen it a lot of times as well, definitely. Where, a client will come and you'll say, oh, So what do you think may have caused that? And then they go, and you're like, really nothing? I mean, is it nothing that you know or just nothing at all? And, sometimes they might say, yeah, nothing is just come about. So a story, I was working with a man who had a stroke. And, I like asking questions. And the reason why I ask a lot of questions and, I'm grateful for clients, giving feedback and answering honestly because, that information that they share can be used and shared to prevent anyone else going through a similar experience, because we've got enough people with illnesses, diseases, stress, strokes, everything. We don't need so much more people. And, through, their stories, just like how patients in medical files have helped inform us today, all these stories are vital because you will see a relationship between cause and effect. And it becomes so undeniable that you know what will happen if this happens. And the good thing is that we all have, and or if we don't have them now, we've all had at one point, or if we don't have, let's say, parents I'm talking about, we've got parents, grandparents, and those before us, or people that share the same blood, DNA, or whatever. And the good thing about that is they will show us, especially our parents and our grandparents, when we observe them and see any of their ills that they go through, a lot of the times we will be on that same trajectory, especially if we do exactly the same thing, because there's a type of lifestyle, if you've got, let's say, a father with diabetes, and you can see physically that he's eating a lot of sugary stuff or just a bad diet throughout the years. Now, if you stay on that same trajectory, you know that you've got the DNA and the genes to manifest the same problem, so you can't really hide away from it. And that's the beauty about cause and effect is that for a lot of conditions, we know the causes, even a lot of conditions that we might not explicitly acknowledge the causes, we still deep down know the causes. And with this stroke patient, he was one of the ones that really made me realize actually, even when it comes to things like strokes and that, your body's giving you warning signs way before you actually get the stroke, you know. And he was explaining about dizziness for time, feeling unwell, and even at the time of the stroke, it was not understanding what was happening in his body and doing the action instead of seeking help at the right time, overstraining the body, which eventually led to the stroke. So nothing that I've seen happens by chance, And when you observe yourself and whatever you're going through, you can see there's always a relationship, between sickness and something that causes sickness. And a lot of the thing that we do attribute the sickness to is all these emotional balances that might be happening. Um, so again, cause and effect, we always think of it in a negative sense. But again, it can be positive, because if you train hard, work hard in the gym, your muscles are going to get stronger. That is cause and effect. And a lot of the times it is proportionate to the problem. You're not going to get a grade 3 muscle tear just by carrying 1 kilogram. But you could get that maybe if you lifted up something extremely heavy, or if you carried a load, or if something hit you as you was moving, you could get that, but it's always going to be proportionate. The cause and effect is usually going to be proportionate. And we might not see it as proportionate because one day we might wake up with a lot of shoulder pain, or we might end up with an impingement of one of the rotator cuff muscles, which is very painful. And we might go, well, actually, I didn't do anything. I literally did carry that little bit of shopping. But we might not necessarily register the cumulative cause of the problem over an extended period of time. And now we're feeling the effect, and we're thinking that the effect is bigger than the cause, and much bigger than the cause, when actually, if anything, the cause was a little bit bigger than the effect. But, everything is proportionate. Tennis elbow, a lot of the cause of that is carrying heavy loads, or being on the computer all day, or maybe the type of work we're doing, you know, someone sprained their ankle. And a lot of the time that I do, which I do get clients, and you find out that they had these interesting injuries, and you think, something does not add up. And then you question, and then you say, maybe was a little bit of alcohol involved in the cause of the problem. And then they admit, there are other causes to other things that, people might not even admit, or people might not even be aware of. But there's certainly always going to be a cause. Some of the cause might even just be dehydrated, extra tired, and then an athlete has jumped over the hurdle, the first one, and we might be thinking, actually, well, you know, they could, why was it the first hurdle they jumped over? You know? So every cause has an effect. Yeah, so that's basically that. And we go into the last law now.
The last law, yeah? Well, the last law, it may be so, but we gotta split this. We're gonna split it up. So gender, so as we've gone through and we've appreciated our cause and effect. Oh, we've got the monkeys down there as well, and as we go through. See no evil, do not evil, and hear no evil. So can we live the life there? See, hear, and speak. And the last one, do. Do good. So with gender now, gender is in everything. Now, this is one of the concepts that, because of our language, we can sometimes get hung up. It slows us down to appreciate what this concept's really saying. So most times, I've learnt, superimpose the term and utilize the yin and the yang, and it gives us a whole another layer of clarity to this concept of gender. So gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine, which we would call yang, and its feminine, what we call yin, principle. Gender manifests on all planes. So this masculine and feminine is looking at this positive and negative. And it is different from understanding polarity. It's beyond just observing the degree at which things are shifting and going along. It's actually taking a look at the actual concept itself that is opposite or similar in kind, but different in nature. And this manifests, so we have the yang, we can call it also, as well as positive, we can call it passive or active, or forward in motion, outwards, expansive. So that means there's always this quality going on, always that quality. And then we have this other quality in the yin, or we can call it the negative, or we can call it the feminine, this internal, this reflective, this still state, this slowing down, this cold. This is the term that we describe yin with. And it's a little bit beyond the feminine quality. Well, it's not beyond the feminine quality because it is housed within the feminine. But because we will say the feminine be a woman, the masculine be a man, we get hung up on that one there. But not appreciating in the yin and yang quality, there is a little bit of yin in the yang and a little bit of yang in the yin. Therefore, in the woman resides the true state of yang, and in the man resides the true state of yin. Shifting the thing around. And this manifests on all planes of existence, where we have this cathode or this anode, or we have this positive charge or a negative charge on an atom. I mean, that happens on every stage of reality, where we have an electron and a proton. This is still operating in the law of gender. And this happens on the smallest of level, till we see it on the biggest plane of existence. So gender itself, do not be misled by the term gender and think that we are operating only within the masculine and the feminine quality pertaining to human beings. And it's all about women, it's all about men. You know, go a bit deeper in the sense that we are looking at the different qualities that generates. And we can say, as a result, that if a person acts in a masculine way, be it male or female, then they are expressing a drive, a direction, a force, a courage, an outwardness, an expansion. And you can say, be male or female, if a person has gone inwardly, they're doing internal reflection, meditation, they're observing their emotions, they're expressing them. But you know, the masculine would be logic. So you are expressing your emotions, you're connected with them, you feel stuff around you, have empathy. Yeah, then we're expressing a yin quality or feminine quality as a man that can be expressed. That's a man in touch with his nature internally. A woman expressed that. The woman is getting in touch with her nature, its masculine quality. It can go out of balance, where the man or the woman can become too masculine for a woman or too feminine for a man. At what point does that crossover? We see it, but it's still fine line with that one there. So gender is looking at this yin and yang quality. We also have a concept, but Christos will go into that, the one we're going to describe, what I just described a moment ago. But when we delve deep into gender, we have something called mental gender, which is talking about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. Yeah, the I and the I, the I and the am. The part of you which is dealing with everyday reality, logical thought, thing that you perceive, your cognitive reality, all that lovely stuff there. The conscious mind, which is manipulated and controlled by the inner mind. So we will call that yin or feminine, when we're looking at this law of gender, how to manipulate and to tweak it a little bit on ourselves or on somebody else, on a group. So we look at the inner aspect, being yin or feminine. So the part that is programmable, the part of the consciousness that is doing the job, getting it done, is masculine. So we call that positive. And then once we're aware of this now, this dual nature, this dual mind taking place internally between the masculine and the feminine, you can say, the yin and the yang, the subconscious or the conscious. So many words to describe the duality, the polarity of mentalism. But once you understand that there is a polarity of mentalism, that means you can program the subconscious mind to drive and direct the conscious mind. This is what the hermetist or the mystic being or the sage or someone who's practicing the laws and ultimately trying to do when it comes to understanding the law of gender, is that we're trying to put programs into our subconscious mind through repetitive action, through chanting, through reading of psalms, prayers, through reading of scriptures and books, through studying biology, physics, English, maths, through reading whatever text we're reading. We're trying to, and the thing is, yeah, I say that consciously. People do that unconsciously. So they'll be doing all that stuff there, and they will be downloading into the subconscious mind, which is directing and driving their conscious mind, the yang, the masculine quality. The gender is ultimately looking at these two qualities as a master key to unlock all these doors. It's these two qualities we are observing. That this quality happens in everything, the yin and the yang. It even happens on the most deepest level for us, at this dual mind, which ultimately leads to transmutation, mental transmutation. So that is our breakdown on the science of gender. And gender itself, as we go deeper into this quality, I come to find that it's one of the most easiest laws to apply, most difficult law to understand and appreciate, only because of language, only because of what we've been taught from young and the words that we are using to understand it. And remember, the book itself was written in 1908, and at that time there, it was fine. And when you go back further, Hermetica, again, a masculine and feminine conversation and language is fine. We go back into our time and we use these deities, and we don't really refer to them as masculine and feminine, even though it's a god and a goddess, but they be deified. So it's kind of like a different way in which we're looking at it.
And hopefully you can take it away with you, take it home with you, take it everywhere with you, work, home, play, everywhere. Let's see. Yeah, so everything has gender, and you can see it everywhere. Like so you were saying is because of the language, it might not be so easy to actually explain in everything, but it is in everything. And through careful, even just careful observation, you will see it. So, for example, I like to explain it in the yin and yang because to me, when you're looking at the yin and yang coming from more the Chinese medical expression, I feel that personally there seems to be less confusion compared to male and female or masculine and feminine from a kind of Western perspective. But everything is yin and yang. So when we're looking at the muscles, the active component of the muscles, that is more yang. When you're looking at the bone, it is more yin. Again, when you look at the heat and the cold, you will see that, muscles are the ones actually producing the movement. And, they do warm up. And again, that's another feature of yang, where the bones are, they're much, cooler, colder in temperature, especially if it weren't for the muscles that keep it warm. Again, when we're looking at the density, we can see that even just that supporting structure of the bone has more of that yin quality and the more flexibility. The muscles will change, they will hypertrophy, and at a more visible rate, definitely than the bones, again, which is expression of the yang, but also not just the bones, but the connective tissues also express more of that yin quality. So even when training and the concept of yin and yang can come in training. So for example, if you try and, when you're looking at training methods and more explosive, more, repetitive, again, that's going to have a yang component. When you're looking at exercises such as yoga and Pilates, again, that's more slower contractions, the smaller muscles, etc. Again, that's more of a yin component. Now, if you try and do a yang exercise, let's say a squat, and you've got like 100 kilograms. Now, for the average person, if they try and do that in a yin way by holding And we're not talking about holding for a few seconds. We're talking about holding like they're doing Pilates, let's say holding for 30 seconds. One, I've never seen that really been done ever. And two, there's a risk of damage of the muscles or risk of injury by trying to work out a very yang exercise in a very yin way. And likewise, when you're doing things like Pilates and you do it in a very yang way, again, you risk problems and injuries, because these exercises are meant to be done in a controlled, slow pattern rather than a, robust, high tempo manner. So you can see yin and yang in everything. When we're looking at, what's happening at the neuromuscular junction, and you've got the vesicle with acetylcholine, and even the release of those, is a very yang expression. We can see that release in, a man making love, so to speak, or ejaculation. And again, the yin component of that is where the receptors are receiving. Again, we can see that in that being a very feminine quality. So we see yin and yang in nearly everything. Again, when we're looking at this, like so I think so he was saying about the sun, when we're getting the sun and the expansion, the summer is more yang, where the winter is more yin, and even just trying to ground ourselves, we find that grounding ourselves, feet in the soil is a very yin component, and maybe the movements, the Tai Chi movements, is more of a yang expression, but through grounding oneself and the yang, we can see the balance of these principles. So throughout the body, throughout life, throughout nature, we see all of these working. When we're looking at the uh, consciousness and subconscious, and again, even when we're looking at the colors, we're seeing the black, we're seeing the absorption, we're seeing even, the nature of the universe very dark. And, we would a lot of the time describe, the universe in sometimes a very feminine quality, that absorption, that out of the darkness things manifesting. But again, then when we're looking at, let's say, the Big Bang or whatever, that's a very yang expression. But then that happened within the darkness, and it's an expression of the two. And even when so he was showing the symbol of yin and yang, what I like about the moving symbol actually is where you can see the two dots moving within each other. So it kind of even got you thinking when you were explaining what you were explaining and seeing the way the circles were moving. I haven't seen that one before. I thought that one was interesting.
The yin
And
and yang, this Tai Chi symbol, can you briefly, yeah, because I've done this the other day in class, connect the seven principles to this, because remember, we say yin and yang, the symbol is called Tai Chi, the supreme ultimate. That's how it's translated. That symbol means the supreme ultimate. Doesn't mean yin yang. Within this Tai Chi symbol, we have all the seven laws described. Literally right in front of us.
The most obvious is definitely the law of gender. We can see it within itself. The law of mind. Well, even yeah, for that even being perceived.
That's the law of mind. Move on.
law, law of correspondence. We can correspond gender across all planes.
Well, if we just look at the symbol and say correspondence, then as we see the different colors.
The black within the white and the white within the black.
This is the as above, so below kind of understanding.
Yeah.
These two opposites we see. And then we go into vibration.
It's always moving.
Yeah,
and it's always moving with the rhythm.
So then rhythm as a symbol here because the vibration can be seen as the dot, and then the rhythm can be the sine wave in the center.
The ebbing and flowing
It's,
in between the two polarities, as one might do.
that's right, between the polarities then. And then we have our cause and effect. Well, through the opposites being expressed, we know that there is a possibility of there being a shift, a change. If that white is in the black, then there's a possibility that white can cause something in the black to change.
Yes.
The same as the black being in the white, as we know the concept of what the black is, which is yin. That quality of yin can permeate through yang. And then we have, gender as the last one, or the positive and the negative.
Yeah. Cause and effect, did you say that?
Cause and effect. How we look at cause and effect on this one here? Since every cause has a reaction, I suppose through the description of describing the yin quality being inside the yang, that cause has an effect, but then that ripples through time. See what degree? Because as the other diagram shows, because this is 2D or 1D, that's 2D, 3D, where the space is being connected in a certain way, then there's vibration. So things will be in flux and things will be in motion. It won't be static and still.
And even that rhythm, because if this character moves too much in the yang, then that can cause an effect where
Right.
the pendulum will push him maybe all the way to this side, where one wants to stay more in the balance.
A more simple symbol seen globally around the world and not really appreciated. That this is a true expression of what we have covered today. The understanding of this these principles, these 7 laws. Because that's why we represented that symbol, and we're well happy to wear this Tai Chi symbol. Often misunderstood for the symbol of gender or yin yang, but we have today appreciated this mind concept, the circle itself, all emanating from the oneness.
And the more you read, the more you study, the more you will just see it in everyday reality. And when you know these laws, one, it's hard to blame anything outside of yourself. You just don't.
Yeah.
All the things, the atrocities, the bad things you see, there's more to life than what we was given or told through our TV screens. And yeah, even just the fact that you're here, everything's in balance, and even transition to the next plane and we're in another experience, it will still be another type of balance. But that's the one thing that these laws, we can correspond them to all planes and
Everything.
every.
That's right. That's the power of the laws. So these are the master keys we've tried to express with various examples, connecting it primarily to the human body. Generally, when we're coming across these laws and talking about them, it's usually external and spoken in relation to stuff that is unrelated to the physical form. So it's really important when we understand this internally, then to understand the world around us, understand the universe and beyond these planes of reality, it just becomes one connection. Just this whole concept of all being one and everything being within the all. This whole concept there, hard to take on board, this first one, mind. All is mind, erotic and mental. Really ultimately saying, you are part of the all and erotic is within you. You are the all within the all. One of the most challenging ones out of all of them. It sounds so easy. I just say that as my last point. It sounds so easy to accept the first concept. All is mind and everything is mental. If you say that, that means ultimately you are everything. If you are everything, then why is there so much turbulence? And that's what usually causes the blockage in the development there. If we can get over that one there and invest time with that concept, wow, we've well advanced on the path of self-mastery. Well advanced. Telling you. And if you are there, then I'm telling you, you are advanced on the path. Yeah. All right.
Right, then thank you all. Yeah, have a good night. And yeah, join us in 2 weeks' time.
All right. Good night, everybody.